Hello, I'm Dave Feinlieb, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. We'd love it if you would subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast, and drop me a note at dave@itsrapid.ai to find out more about our free shoppable video offer. My guest on today's show is Josh Clarkson. Josh is Director of Digital at Russell Stover Chocolates, where he's building and leading a brand new digital team from scratch. At Russell Stover, Josh is establishing the digital strategy for the next 3 years and beyond, recruiting and leading across D2C, e-grocery, marketplace, and social commerce, as well as digital marketing. Prior to Russell Stover, Josh was Senior E-commerce Manager at Kraft Heinz, where he led marketplace and D2C strategy. And before that, Josh held roles at Lindt, Ferrero, and Red Bull across digital and grocery. Outside of work, Josh lives transatlantic and enjoys returning to the UK and enjoying long walks with his fiancée, Hannah, and dog, Toby. Please enjoy my conversation with Josh Clarkson. Josh, great to see you again.
And you, Dave. It's nice that we can catch up, and it's not at an event or traveling somewhere around the US.
Exactly. Now, where do we find you today?
I'm at my house in England, just outside of London, leafy Surrey. So not in the US, but only for a short time. I'm heading back in a couple of weeks.
And you'll be back.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you for hosting me at your office in KC a few weeks ago. You've got a wonderful setup and a really terrific team there.
Yeah, no, it was really good, actually. I mean, it was nice that you could be in KC. It was great to show more people in the business what you're doing at It's Rapid. We know that kind of the quality and the volume of digital content that's required by brands nowadays and what consumers want to engage with is growing. And so it was really great to see not just video content, but all the other ways that you're helping brands deliver that.
Well, thanks for that. Before we dive into the content and the marketing and in detail, I'd love to hear your background, and I'd love it if you'd take us back and tell us how you got your start in the space.
Probably like a lot of people, it was by accident. I was working on a couple of drug and kind of specialty customers in the UK, and they started doing some cool stuff online, and I had no idea really. So I started engaging with our very small e-commerce team that we had in the UK, and we kind of formed a little bit of a partnership. And then just before the pandemic started, he was hiring for someone new to take over Amazon that was rapidly growing for us. And so despite having no experience, he said, "Hey, would you like to interview?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I don't really know what it is." And then I somehow got the job, and then the rest is history, really.
And those are the best, right? You kind of know at a high level what it is, but you're making the leap. I always find those to be the most kind of rewarding and challenging.
It's scary. And I think anyone that thinks they know everything about those kind of jobs, like moving into e-commerce or moving to a different function, you don't, but they're sometimes the best jobs you can take.
Now, you've been at a few different companies, different roles in digital marketing. What are some of your learnings from those different experiences?
Well, one is exactly that. It's learning. I think every day is day one. Steal that from Mr. Bezos, but I think every time you kind of move into a slightly different space within the digital world, there's something new coming out every day, every hour. There's different mergers and acquisitions. There's different technology. So making sure you're willing to learn, you're willing to reach out to people and kind of build your knowledge so that you can share that internally is really important. I think the other thing within that is trying to hire the right talent. I have spoken before at great length about how I think the industry globally has a talent shortage. And so just because someone has never worked in e-commerce doesn't mean they're not willing to learn and willing to put the time in, and actually could become the best person you ever hire. So for me, it's hiring the right talent because they they're willing to engage in the space and learn. That's the most important thing I've learned working with different people and in different companies.
When you talk to someone, maybe you're doing an interview and on paper, to your point, maybe they don't have the domain experience in ecom or digital marketing. What are you looking for when you're talking with that person that gives you that knowledge or that confidence to say, even though they don't necessarily know the space, I'm really excited about this person and I can see that appetite for learning?
There's a couple of really important things. One is they don't have to know everything, but like you said, they're willing to learn. But the extra piece is that they're willing to share, or that they're willing and able to convey that knowledge to a wider audience, because they might suddenly very quickly become the subject matter expert, even if they've never worked in that industry before, and then they have to share that with a wider marketing, sales, supply chain, finance team. So being able to be really coherent and clear on kind of knowledge sharing is really important. The other thing for me is finding people that just know how to get stuff done. It's so important to find someone who maybe doesn't have all the answers, but they say, "Hey, I don't have all the answers, but give me a day or two and I'll go figure out if we can do this or how we might do this." Barack Obama said that's the best skill any new person getting into any industry can learn, is learn how to get stuff done. And it's something I always look for. It doesn't matter what the example is. If someone says, I didn't know how to do something, but I went away and I came back and I said, okay, I can do it, that's so valuable for me.
100%. And figuring that out and kind of connecting the dots. Tell us a little about Russell Stover, the chocolates, which are delicious, by the way, and you're heading up digital there. Share with us a little about the role and the company.
It's a great company. So it's owned by Linton Sprungley, who owned Lindt and Ghirardelli as well in the US. And they asked me to kind of head over to Kansas City and take over Russell Stover Chocolate's kind of digital team that they didn't really tell me at the start didn't really exist. So we built the team there. I think Russell Stover is kind of a household name in the US. They've been in the chocolate making business for 100 years as of this year. And we've classically traded in kind of your typical big box channels, mass and drug and grocery. But digital and e-commerce was all a little bit new. So over the past 15 months, we've been building the team who are really pushing the wider company on stretching our boundaries and our capabilities in digital, whether that's content, supply chain and fulfillment, how we acquire new shoppers.
I love it. When you think about your role and your day to day for those that would like to be doing a similar role or thinking about maybe what they want to get done in 2024, how do you prioritize all these different activities you could be doing in this leadership role that you have?
That's actually kind of a question I ask in interviews, is how do you prioritize? Because there is so much that you can do. In general, I take a two-pronged approach when I look at things. I either try and focus on activities, projects, initiatives that are going to consistently make us better by 1 to 5%, and long term they're going to massively benefit the company from an efficiency perspective, those kind of things. Or I focus on the things that are going to grow us in the next year or two by 30% plus, 40% plus. My team probably get a little bit annoyed at me sometimes, but I'm like, okay, how do we double that part of the business? And it's always, how do you double it? What do you need? Don't say I can't do that, or I need this investment. You tell me what you need to double the business, and then we'll figure out what we can do now and then in the future. So yeah, the tiny stuff and the big stuff. Don't worry about the stuff in the middle, because it's not as important.
The company had some amazing milestones this year. You celebrated your 100-year anniversary. So, congratulations on that. Amazing milestone. And you set the new Guinness record for the world's largest box of chocolates. It's amazing. Tell us about that.
We achieved the Guinness World Record title for the world's largest box of chocolates. There we go. That's how I'm definitely meant to say it. But yeah, it was to kick off our 100th year. Only 0.5% of US companies have made it to 100, which is a crazy stat. So we wanted to go big. And I just remember when I first joined the company, it was like, what are we doing? And people said, oh, we're going to do some great celebrations at our factories and great celebrations, with our teams. And I said, how do we talk to our consumers? How do we show that we've been around for 100 years, but we're not going anywhere? We're still, a major player in the US chocolate market. And I just remember our head of insights was just like, well, I just thought it'd be really fun if we could build the world's largest box of chocolates. And I said, all right, why don't we? And I mean, I said yes without thinking about how complicated it would be. But yeah, back in April, we kicked off our 100-year celebrations. We had a huge event at this beautiful classical music opera kind of venue in Kansas City. Yeah, we built the world's largest box of chocolates. It was 5,616 pounds. The box was 30 foot by 15 foot. It looked identical to our classic Russell Stover assorted chocolate box. That was a stipulation by Guinness. It had to look the same. We used a local company, Dimensional Innovations. They do loads of work for global companies everywhere, and they were the best partners to build that box. And yeah, we had a huge event. I mean, some of these chocolates were up to 30 pounds for an individual chocolate, and they were all made in our innovation labs and in our factories by our great team. So it was a real huge. People say it takes a village, but this was incredible, and the team that sits within my business that pulled it off, I'm still amazed that they did it. It was great. So yeah, that started us off, and then since then, we've done a 100-year coast to coast celebratory tour. We went from coast to coast with our little cute Russell Stover chocolate truck, and people could get in the truck, have photos with replica chocolates and things like that. That just finished in New York at New York Wine and Food Festival a couple of weeks ago. And now, as we close off the year, we're running our centennial sweepstakes. So we're giving one lucky Russell Stover lover the opportunity to win $100,000. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. If your listeners are interested, they can go to russellstover.com/100K and enter. Yeah, it's all happening for our 100th year for sure.
The way the team came together to build it and the sweepstakes, man, that sounds amazing. We'll definitely include that in the show notes and get the word out. So on the digital side of things, when we think about the online part where we wish we could reach through the screen and, grab the box and open it up, but we have to do the next best thing, which is the content and the visuals and all of that. What's kind of on the game plan and the roadmap for you for the next year or so as you look at 2024?
Well, first of all, to start with this year, really for us, it was about building the foundation. So, looking at kind of where did we not have content? Where did we only have pack shots or, descriptions that were off the packaging? How did we make sure our content was at a basic level of acceptability, both for us as a brand, for our consumers who are trying to understand what our products are, and for our retail partners to meet their requirements. We also did a huge project relocating our fulfillment center so that we could better serve our D2C customers and expand into marketplace and social commerce. And as we go to 24, it's really just about building on those kind of fundamental structures that we've started and accelerating that growth. So that might be, using the fact that we've relocated our fulfillment center to drive quicker delivery to russellstover.com customers. We're looking at new products we can expand onto marketplaces. From a content perspective, which you and I talk about a lot, it's how do we go from, okay, this is 1.0, this is the basics, to 2.0, 3.0. How do we A/B test what works for shoppers and what works for retailers? And really for us, considering how do we take content from this tells the consumer what the product is to this tells the consumer why the product is right for them. Lindt, as a group, did the world's largest chocolate shopper study last year. And out of that came loads of great info about demand moments and why and when consumers are purchasing different kinds of chocolate. So trying to use that in our content rather than just saying it's a box, so it's a gift. Actually, it might be a box, but it might be more about sharing while you watch a movie or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot to come. Content's a huge part, but yeah, lots of acceleration in 24 and beyond.
I like this idea of kind of the V1, you get the base in place and the foundation, and you've got your V2 and V3. I think that's a really great, and what I like about that, it's very iterative. Like to your earlier point, you can get stuff done, and then you can iterate and you can continue to grow. Will you parse apart when you think about things like social commerce? You've got D2C, you've got marketplace. Will you take a moment and just talk about what do each of those areas mean for you when it comes to getting in front of the customer and sharing the brand with the shoppers?
I think I probably start at the broadest part of it, which is maybe our kind of classic retailers, grocery, mass, all that kind of stuff that we consider as wholesale. But also, I'd probably put marketplaces in there as well. These are the places you can reach consumers. This is where people may not know us, but actually we can be quite clever through digital activations to reach consumers we never would reach if we were just relying on physical availability within a store. And then the kind of next level down is actually marketplace specifically. How do we offer things that are quite unique that we can't offer if a retailer requires it to be in a physical location, because maybe it's a 3, 4, 5 pound box of chocolates that's 5 times the size of your head. It's you're not gonna fit that into every classic retail store location. And then the final part is kind of our D2C platform. And that's where we aim to service our most loyal customers and the ones that really love the brand. So on russellstover.com, we have triple, quadruple the assortment that you'd find in the best store with the most Russell Stover products. We have loads of, genuinely hundreds of unique products that you can't buy anywhere else that we just produce for both our retail store locations and also for russellstover.com. And that's where, consumers can discover, they can find things that they can only get in those locations. But also for us, it's a great way to communicate with them. If we launch a new product, do you like it? Is it right? Do you like the packaging? Do you like the new flavors that we're launching? And I think that we'll see more of that going forward in how we want to offer the best experience for our consumers, but we also want our top loyal consumers to share back with us. Like, do they like the flavors we're producing? Do they like the products? What do they want to see from Russell Stover?
So it's sort of a really direct way to engage with the consumer and get some live feedback and incorporate that back in. I think that's really cool.
That's the benefit of D2C platforms for me is
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not just sales. Yeah, you can sell stuff, but it's also marketing. It's also consumer engagement. It's really important.
Tell us about the digital marketing when it comes time to build the plan and build the content and go execute. What does a typical planning process look like for you? What are the considerations? Who's involved? How do you go about it?
So I would say transparently, we're not perfect. I don't think anyone is. I think digital and e-commerce has often been an afterthought for brands, that they maybe want to launch a campaign or launch a product and they go, oh, we should adapt that for online. And it's already too late by that point. So we're working to create a new process where the kind of digital part of any product launch or activation or marketing campaign is integrated within our go-to-market process, and really kind of embed it within the foundations. If you're designing the packaging for a new product, just consider the digital content as the online packaging. It's no different. It's what your consumer is going to see first and foremost, and how they're going to engage with the product and with the brand. And so by building that, we then kind of involve pretty much everyone in the business, from a supply chain perspective, from a creative perspective, the marketing team, our innovation team, yeah, the sales team, obviously. So it's really a full cross-functional exercise that we kind of only really just kicked off in the last few months.
But starting early in the process to have digital be part of that, even from I guess the product creation, I think that's really unique and a really interesting approach.
Ask me about it next year, and hopefully I'll have some nice examples I can share.
That'd be great. So on to the creative process. So you've got your plan, this plan going. How does content development work? And creative is something where it's creative. There is an execution part, but there's also a creative part. How does that work? And how do you think about that part of the cycle?
Yeah, so the aim with this new process is that as soon as we have all the kind of packaging, nutritionals, and the product locked, as our in-house creative team are finalizing exactly what they want the packaging to look like, we should also be looking at what we want the digital content to look like, and the descriptions and titles, and different kind of images. And I mentioned earlier the kind of demand moments for shoppers and why they might consume that product. Is it a little pick me up? Is it a gift? Is it a really impressive gift? Because the two are very different. So trying to think about it really early on in the process, and also within that creative process, thinking about where the products might be sold. Is it, purely going to be in store? It's very focused towards store. So how do we start considering what are the kind of shopper levers we can pull to engage consumers, especially if it's a very new product that we haven't played in that subcategory before, or maybe even a completely new category? How do we convince the consumer, hey, our brand, something like this product, but this is different, and drive that. So yeah, it's early on in the process. We have an in-house creative team that do all the kind of foundational work, and then inevitably with online, you have to adapt it for every single different platform you want to use it on. And we have a sort of global team that we can utilize over in Europe to do adaptations and things like that.
What kind of creative would you like to be doing that you're not necessarily doing today?
What a loaded question. Look, I think we're already starting the journey with what I would call basic content. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to continue along that line. I talked about earlier, kind of V2, with A/B testing. How do you improve? How do you, understand heat mapping for how a shopper's eyes shop the digital shelf, all that kind of stuff. But there's a huge demand, not just from our consumers, but also from our retail partners, for more engaging content. And that might be on the PDP, or that might be through advertising. And that might be something as simple as extra kind of images. It might be something like video content or stop motion. Dave, you and I have talked about it a lot. I think it's only going to get bigger. Whether people like things like TikTok or not, brands are starting to engage more and more through video content with their consumers. So whether it's at a point of purchase like a retailer's website, or on something like social media, more engaging content is only going to go up and up in the quality and the quantity that's required.
I think you're absolutely right. This bite-sized content, visual, highly engaging. This is how we're all consuming content these days. So I think it's great to be foot forward and thinking about how do we build and create that kind of content that's going to keep our shopper engaged and informed and so on. There's another area I wanted to ask you about, especially in grocery more broadly, but confectionery in particular. There's lots of opportunities. You mentioned gifting earlier, you mentioned sharing. How do you think about these moments throughout the year, these seasonal opportunities, but also these family moments, these friends moments, things like that? And how does that tie into your content strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a really good one, because quite often you may find that some of, everyday products are consumed and purchased more for seasonal events, even if they're not, or internally we don't consider them seasonally relevant. I use an example from our portfolio. Russell Stover's the number one producer of sugar-free chocolate. Sugar-free chocolate, in my mind, if I looked at the chart, I'd think fairly, maybe a little uptick in January, February, people trying to cut sugar out of their diet, but in general, fairly flat. But it's not like that at all. We see huge upticks at Valentine's Day, and then at other seasons throughout the year. And so before we can, there's two ways to go about it. One, you can seasonalize your content. So if I think about Halloween just gone, maybe we have a large pack of individually wrapped sugar-free chocolates and candies. So make consumers realize that that could be an option for Halloween. It could be an option for whether they're trick-or-treating or whether they're having friends around and it's kind of, a bit more of an adult party. Do you seasonalize your imagery? Do you seasonalize your titles? Make sure that you're ticking the keywords. I'm not a big believer in keyword stuffing, but making sure it's relevant for the season you're in. But also you can take that and go a step further. This year we launched a sugar-free heart box for Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is a huge season for us, and we saw this huge uptick in sugar-free, and we're thinking, why is that? And it's because people were buying our product and then repackaging it into, heart boxes that they buy from Hallmark or wherever. And we said, hang on, we can just make a sugar-free gift box. It's a really considered purchase for that person in your life who wants to cut sugar out of their diet, but you also want to buy them a gift for Valentine's Day. So then you can have loads of fun with the content, because then it's like exactly what they're looking for.
Love the creativity and sort of the way that you and the team think about these different opportunities. As we think about, you've got your base, you're building, iterating these versions of content that are coming, getting out the crystal ball here, looking ahead to the next few years. What are some of the things you're keeping an eye on, and some of the marketing changes and opportunities that are on the horizon for you and for e-commerce more broadly?
When you and I have attended events in the last few months, probably the biggest buzzword is something like seamless commerce. And whether you want to call it omni-channel, seamless commerce, path to purchase, it doesn't matter. But the clear message is shoppers are promiscuous, not now just with the retailers, but with the channels that they shop. And actually, there's a load of great content that's come out in the last couple of days highlighting that shoppers are still more likely to discover products in store. But what do they do as soon as they discover those products? They go to their phone and they look up what the product is online. They check the reviews, they check the description, they find things out. So it's becoming more and more blurred. So I think the key lesson, and what we're going to make sure we're doing going forward, is joining the dots on that customer path to purchase. You can have a great online strategy and a great offline strategy, but they are the same thing now. Walmart said last year, at the end of last year, 68% of their shoppers use the app in store, because they're looking at reviews, they're checking prices, they're wanting to understand. When I go shopping in the US as a Brit, I never know what products look like, because there's all different packaging versus the UK. So I get my app out and I'm looking, oh, that's a red packaging. Okay, let me see if I can see it on the fixture. So yeah, I think that's going to be really important as we go forward. How do we integrate what previously has been digital marketing and classic or shopper marketing, depending on where you're looking at it, into this true seamless commerce, seamless shopper journey? And trying to help consumers wherever they're shopping, wherever they're browsing, wherever they're purchasing, find the right products for them. I think that's the most important thing going forward.
So well said. Well, Josh, it's been a pleasure talking about content, about commerce, and so on. I'd love to ask you a couple of quick questions before we wrap up here, and those are: what two people have inspired you the most in your professional life?
Ooh, okay. Well, I mentioned Obama earlier, so he probably gets a good shout out. I just think that point about being able to get stuff done is so important. Not necessarily knowing how to do everything. You don't have to be the digital expert in my field, for example, but being able to go away and figure things out. I've certainly taken that on as okay, if someone asks me something and I've got no idea, I say, give me a bit of time and I'll try and figure it out for you. The other one is probably Simon Sinek. I've been reading his books for a number of years. His most famous ones probably Start With Why. And he's got some incredible advice for understanding the motivations of a team and of a business, that have been really valuable to me when building this new team. And I think he's got some great points as well when you're considering your consumer, whether it's the products you create, the marketing. So yeah, if your listeners haven't heard of him, I'd give him a Google. And he kind of lives rent free in my head with all of his different videos, but he's a great source of kind of inspiration, I think.
Yeah, he's got some great talks, 100%. And this idea of get stuff done, and the ability to really just figure it out and dive in and work on these things. I think these are both really great concepts. So really appreciate those. Outside of the time you spend on work and of course with your family, what are some of your favorite hobbies, or a favorite hobby?
Two very different things, I would say. One, Russell Stover's Kansas City company has been for about 80 years. So getting on board with the Kansas City Chiefs has been a good one. I nearly wore my jumpers over there. I nearly wore it, but I was like, no, I won't wear it. So yeah, trying to keep up with them slash
I love it.
make sure I understand American football. And then when I'm back in the UK, it's a complete different story. You don't know if you can hear him pottering around my feet, but just going on long walks with my dog in the middle of the countryside, in the middle of middle of nowhere with him and my fiance. Those are the best times, especially if there's a nice pub halfway around. You can stop for a pint and fish and chips or something.
Two great cultures, and a lot of inspiration there. So those are wonderful. Well, if folks want to get in touch with you digitally online, what's the best way for them to find you?
They can probably find me on LinkedIn. Always happy to talk about anything from dog walks to digital media. So yeah, whatever they want to talk about, just find me there.
Josh, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard, please visit our website at itsrapid.ai, where you can find out more about how we're helping leading brands like PepsiCo save thousands of hours a year when it comes to retail media and digital shelf content creation. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more great episodes of Beyond the Shelf. See you next time.